Hey there guys, it's Amit and welcome back to DevDreamer. So in this lesson then we're taking a look at CSS backgrounds. Now we can do some really cool things with the CSS background property, such as creating a hero image or even using it to do some really cool parallax effects. That's when you actually scroll and the background image stays fixed. So in this lesson we're going to take a look at pretty much everything you need to know when it comes to the CSS background property. So without further ado, let's begin. So first then let's actually place a div on our HTML file here. Okay, we'll just keep an empty div for now. And this div is going to actually act as a container for our background. So here, let's select that div and we'll do curly braces. Let's give this a width of 600 pixels and give it a height of 600 pixels as well. Okay, let's also give it a border so we can see what we're actually working with here. So 1 pixel solid grey. And let me just do margin 50 pixels top and bottom and auto to center it. Okay, so we have our div container here then. Now there are many different background properties that we can use. Let's start with the most simple. How can we change the background color? Well, we can simply say, still on our div here, we can say background hyphen color, and then we can simply specify a color. So we can say red, okay, yellow, green, whatever, right? So that's quite straightforward. For a more in-depth look at the different types of color properties we have in CSS, check out the video that I did on CSS colors. For now, let's just set this to red. Okay, nice and simple. The next property we're going to look at is how to actually set a background image. So here, we're going to say background, and it's hyphen, and of course you guessed it, hyphen image. Now there are many different options to choose from here, and you might think that to specify an image we actually use the image property here, but actually what we're looking for is URL, okay? And with this we're actually going to specify a file path straight to our image. So this is how our folder is set up. We're going to select images, and inside that I'm looking for the Sonic image. Okay, we're going to be using this image for the duration of this tutorial. Now straight away you might have noticed something very strange. If you take a look at our image here, for some reason, it's slightly aligned to the right. Okay, it's actually been cut off here. But even more strangely, it seems to be repeating, as you can see the top of Sonic's head here. Let's actually take a look at this in the main viewport of our screen. So let's just for now say display none. Okay, and we're going to select the body, curly braces, and let's just copy this. Okay, and check this out, guys. Our image is being repeated both along the x-axis, okay, going across, as well as on the y-axis, going down. And this is the default behavior. Whenever you actually use the background image property in CSS, by default, it's going to actually repeat that image going horizontally as well as vertically. Now we can control this with the CSS property background hyphen repeat. Okay, as you can see here, you got some options. By default, it's on repeat, which means it will repeat horizontally and vertically. We can say repeat X, which will only repeat it along the X-axis. Okay, so going horizontally there. We can, of course, say repeat Y, which will repeat it just going down or on the Y-axis. Or we can specify no hyphen repeat. And now that image does not repeat. Okay, so let's just switch back to our div. Okay, just wanted to use that viewport or the body to actually show you how the image repeats. Of course, we can't see that in our div because it's only got a width of 600 pixels by 600 pixels. So now that we know that, we can actually sort this out here by saying background hyphen repeat, no repeat. Brilliant. So now this image is not repeating. Now if you take a look at this, we can actually see our background color that we specified of red behind this image. Okay, so for example, if we actually just commented this out, or actually better still, change this color, okay, you can see that this image only comes down to here. And again, the image doesn't seem to be perfectly fitting within our container. You can see it's sort of aligned to the right here. Now we can actually use another property here. So we can say background, and the one that we're looking for is background size. And here you can specify a size, so we can say 200 pixels. Okay, so now this is a width of 200 pixels. But we actually want this to perfectly span the width of our container. Now we know what the width of container is, it's 600 pixels, but that's not always the case. We won't always know what that width is. And moreover, sometimes that width will actually change as you increase or decrease the actual screen. So how can we know for certain what that width is? Well, luckily we don't need to know, because the CSS background size property gives us the contain value. Okay, and what this will do is it will scale the image to be as large as possible. So as you can see here, the width of this image now is scaled to be as large as possible to actually fit the container. But the issue we're getting here is, because this image is a landscape image, okay, it's this rectangle shape, we're actually seeing that background color underneath. And as you probably guessed by now, CSS has a fix for that too. So we can actually use the cover property, or keyword rather, and what the cover keyword does is it scales the background image so that the container or the content area is completely filled. Now when we use background size cover, we may get this issue where the image is actually being cut off here, but let's actually move this into the center by using background -position, and we can simply select center. And now you can see the image is perfectly centered in the middle of this container. Let's actually specify a size so that we can see this a bit more clearer. So let's say 200 pixels. Okay, now you can see it's in the center. We can say top. We can even do top right or bottom right. Okay, so we can actually specify the position of this background. Let's set this back to center, and let's change this back to cover. Another background CSS property would be the background attachment property. So we'll say background attachment, and what this does is it actually specifies how we want our background to react in relation to any content within our container. So before we specify background attachment, let's actually go ahead and put some content into this container here. So I'm actually going to use the body for this. So this is just a bunch of H1s with DevDreamer. Let's go back to our style.css file. Let's just say to this, let's say display none. We can actually remove this now. And on the body, we can just copy this. And we can also copy the background size. And we're just going to say 200 pixels. And let's get rid of this repeat. So background -repeat is going to be no repeat. Okay, so now we have an image and we have a bunch of H1s. So the background attachment property, as we said, is all about how the content and the actual background image work in relation to one another. Now by default, if you actually scroll, let's see what happens. Okay, the image is actually scrolling with the content as well. And that's the actual default behavior. The default behavior is scroll. Okay, but we can actually specify fixed. And when we do this, this background image here is actually going to remain fixed, and the content is actually going to continue to scroll. So let's take a look at this. Let's scroll. And then we have it, a really cool effect where the content actually scrolls and the image stays fixed. Okay, let's just comment this out so we've still got it. And let's just remove all these H1s. And move this display none. And we're back to our div. Now another property that we can specify here is the background clip property. And it'd be best to use the background color here. So let's just comment this out. And for the border, let's just do 10 pixels and we'll do dotted. And let's go for yellow. Okay, so the background clip property specifies where the background is actually painted. So by default, we can see, just zoom into this. By default, we can see that this background color of green is actually painted to the outside edge of the border. Okay, and this is the actual default. So this will be background clip border box. Now we can also specify that this background color should be painted to the outside edge of the padding. So if we change this to padding -box, we can see now that the background goes right to the edge of the border, but doesn't actually go past the border. And there is another keyword we can use for the background clip, which is the content box, and that actually paints the background in relation to the content. So that's background clip. For now, let's just comment this out. And let's get back to our original container that we had. So this was 1 pixel, this was solid, this was great. And we'll just comment that out for now. Okay, now finally you might be thinking, well, there's so many background properties here. Surely there must be an easier way to write this out. And sure enough, there is. We can actually use the shorthand background property. So it's just background. And then we can specify all these on a single line. Now there is an order here. Okay, so you can't just, choose any of these. You can't do, no repeat and then the color and, then the background size. There is an actual order of these. And I'll leave the order in the description box down below. But from the properties that we're using, the first one we actually want to specify is the background image. So we're going to say URL, images, and Sonic. Okay, so remember here we had the default repeat style of our image, which was to repeat the image horizontally and vertically. We'll fix that in just a second. But the next one that we need to specify is the background position and the background size. And the way that we do that is we'll say our background position is center, so we can just type in center. And then to specify the size, we actually do slash and then the size. So the size here is cover, like so. Next, we can specify our background repeat. So as is going to be no hyphen repeat because we don't want it to repeat. Next will be background attachment. After that, it's background origin. We don't have either of those here. Background clip we took a look at, but we're not actually using it for this. And finally, we can specify the background color. Again, we can't actually see the background color here. It's as is background color green, but let's just put it in anyway. So green. So we can actually comment all this out. Okay, and we still have all those properties specified on a single line using the shorthand background property. Okay guys, so I hope you found this lesson on CSS backgrounds useful. Again, go ahead and practice this and you'll have this mastered in no time. But that's it for this lesson. Please like and subscribe, and as always, I'll see you on the next one.